Please can you tell me your name and your specialism?
Mark Randall, and I'm Chief Strategist for Advanced Technology at Adobe.
We have seen your presentation. It was pretty interesting and impressive. It almost looked like a presentation in a way of psychology or something.
I think there's always psychological aspects to any good design or product. You have to be thinking about the user, and when you're thinking about the user, you have to be thinking about their psychology. And then I think there's also a lot of psychology involved in the process of doing creativity. So you have to be kind of aware of the psychology of the team that you're putting together, and that they're in the right mental space in order to do brilliant innovation.
Yeah, what you were talking about individuals and about groups and projects, and we are learning at school that we should brainstorm in groups and not go on your own and keep on thinking about stuff. But you say something else.
Yeah, brainstorming has been shown in studies to not actually be very effective as compared to alternatives. So one of the best alternatives I call solo storming, which is something that I implement with people, which is I try to pose the question, and then I get the specific people that I think can really help me to spend time thinking about the problem alone instead of in a group, and actually to write things down. And those things can include possible answers. They could include additional questions. They could even question the question and say that it's the wrong question. But they sort of make a list of their thoughts. And then we get that group together. And when we get together, we don't do normal brainstorming, because normal brainstorming, the rules are, we try to go for quantity over quality, and we don't stop and evaluate or criticize any of the ideas. And what I want to do is, when I get that group together, we're actually going to evaluate and criticize the ideas. And that actually makes it more engaging and fun. Particularly the more creative people are, they're usually happy to engage about their ideas and get feedback. And so as we're trying to do that, we're trying to put ideas together, and the best way to put ideas together is to have that engagement between each other. So what the studies show is doing that kind of process will actually yield maybe double the results of having people brainstorm in a big group where they don't criticize or evaluate the ideas, and they just try to make huge lists. They tend to not be very novel ideas, and they're completely unfiltered, so it's not as productive.
So your advice would be for students like us and students who are watching right now, first take the time to study the case on your own, and step number 2, take your time to go with the group and criticize each other's ideas.
Yes. It's not, the purpose isn't to necessarily negatively criticize, but it's really to evaluate and give feedback. And the best way to do that in a meeting is to ask questions. So if you're looking at it, you're like, wow, I don't get why that idea, why did he think that was good? It may not be properly explained or fully thought out, but sometimes there can be an element of a great idea or a part of a great idea inside that person's idea. So you want to ask questions and say, well, so why would that work well? Why do you think that would work well? And then that can lead to this really great engagement and understanding of the idea. And so, and that generally, in my experience, you end up with a lot of interesting pieces and parts of ways of thinking about the problem. And in that kind of meeting, people will spark on a new idea that they didn't bring to the table, that's some synthesis of the other ideas.
How do you know that the idea that's on the table, that's the best idea and the most successful idea? Should everybody in your group be convinced about it, or ain't it necessary?
No, and so my belief is that you always have to have a product or project owner. And this is the absolute dictator and czar over this idea, or this project, or this effort. And their job is to now gather a group of people to help them, but this person will make the final decision. And if it's great, they will give all the credit to the group, and if it sucks, they will take all the blame on themselves. And so there has to be one decider who's going to gather this input, and they have to be very good at gathering input from great people and listening carefully to that input. And so it's the way I describe it is you have to create an absolute dictator, and then that dictator's job is to be the most benevolent dictator ever.
Right. Working at school, they say everybody should be on the same line, and you should try to discuss with everybody, and everything goes out of the team spirit of the group, and you don't have to make some kind of hierarchy in your group. But you say that, well, a leader is a kind of a necessary person.
Well, in any project or product, there has to be somebody that's the ultimate editor. who's going to decide what the finished output is. And when you just put it up to a vote, it ends up a lot of times being some combination of the strongest personalities, and that often isn't the best thing. So the thing is if you create a product or a project and it fails, then you don't know who to blame. Like, you didn't learn anything. And if it succeeds, it's like, well, is that person a great leader who's able to do this? And a lot of times, the reason that it succeeded wasn't the direct effort of the leader. Sometimes a brilliant leader, it's just they're a brilliant leader. And I've seen people, and I've done this myself, where I get that group together to synthesize their ideas, and I don't go. And then they actually work it out, and then I look at the feedback later. Because sometimes I can be a kind of dominant personality, and depending on the group, I'll be like, maybe better if I'm not there for this one.
Well, I think we're almost done, because you said some brilliant things. Yeah, it's a bit sad, but I want to thank you for your time.
Sure.
And have a nice day.
Thanks.